All right, we are now live. Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Welcome, welcome. If you're checking this out on the replay, please let me know in the comments. Welcome to our leadership series this summer. This is going to be important information for both leaders and teachers. I hope you stick around, learn a thing or two. Last week, we started off the conversation talking about how you can spend less time putting out fires and more time actually leading your school. Today, we're going to be talking about instruction. I'm not going to pull any punches. We're going to have an honest and open, real talk about instruction right now because there's some things that we really need to say, we really need to address. And now during your golden window, when you're not actually at school, when you have time to plan, if you're a leader, I know that you have like a lot of time in the summer where you're not necessarily doing a bunch of stuff. Now is the time to be thinking about the topics that I'm going to be covering. Like I said last week, we talked about building out those fireproof systems so you're not spending your whole day fighting fires. You know what I mean, like going from class to class, walkie-talkie, just beeping away, ripping and running throughout all the school. Those days are behind us. We're actually going to be leading with intention. Today, we're going to be talking about instruction. And let me know where you're coming from. If you're watching the replay, like I said, tell me how it is. I just learned yesterday that some folks are still in school. Some of my East Coast people are still in school because they had so many snow days. So if you're still in school, I'm sending you lots of love because I know it's getting to be a little bit rough over there, but I hope it's okay for you. And I'm coming to you. Usually we do this on Thursdays. Y'all know it's like a Thursday series thing, but I'm coming to you from a different time because I'll actually be traveling on Thursday. I'm not in my regular setup. Y'all know I usually have my bookcase. I'm here in Vermont actually doing some professional development. So I'm on the road, but I wanted to make sure I still got this information out to you. Let's talk about it. Instruction. As I'm going, if you have questions, please let me know. But let's just have an open and honest conversation. First, I want to start with this. I know a lot of schools and districts this summer, they're going to spend their summer switching curriculums, doing a study, looking for the next curriculum. And for most of those people, I'm not going to hold your hand when I say this actually. For most of those people, that time will be wasted. Because what I've noticed is that instead of focusing on the problem that we have with instruction, instructional capacity, instructional skill set, and tools, we are throwing money at curriculum. We're throwing money at the next best thing. For a while, it was ed tech. Remember when iReady was going to solve all of our problems? Now look at us. No tea, no shade to iReady, but now look at where we are right now. That we spent so much money on ed tech, and I know because I was a leader when it was really first coming down the pipeline, it's sickening, and I don't think we really got the ROI on that. So why do I open up this conversation with this? Because as a leader, when you stop spending all your time putting out fires, you are more becoming the instructional leader of the classroom. And that's what I want to see you doing. I want you to be leading instruction. But we have to, again, have a very honest conversation. If you have been a school leader for many years, instruction has probably changed. I don't know when the last time you were in the classroom, but it might be very different from what your teachers are experiencing right now. And I know the solution is going to feel like a curriculum, a protocol, etc. But I don't think that that's always the case. I have not seen real jumps be made just by a curriculum alone, because then you got to train everybody on the curriculum. You got to roll it out. By the time we've rolled it out, they're like, oh, well, we just got to roll it out and make sure that the kids who are in second grade have had it for multiple years, and then whoop-de-whoop. By the time the kids have had it for several years, the next best thing is out, and we have shiny ball syndrome, and we're here at the next curriculum. Now, all curriculums are not created equal. I don't mean to say that, because there are some that are really good, and there are some that are really, really bad, especially when it comes to things like social studies, because they're just telling these kids straight out lies. But when you're thinking about instruction this summer, as opposed to thinking a curriculum or a learning platform, switching from Lexia to, Newsella and all that, it's not going to save you. It's not going to save you. And at some point, to do that in this context any longer. You got to think about the teachers that we have. A lot of teachers are getting their credentials and going to their credentialing programs during the pandemic. Or they haven't experienced a student generation where the attention span is 8 to 10 seconds. See, previously the attention span was you double your age, it was in minutes, so or half your age in minutes. So let's say that your kindergarten, your attention span is about 3 minutes. The new studies that are coming out, it's down to seconds. Teachers are not taught how to handle a classroom where your students' attention spans are seconds long. So what can we do about that? How do we actually confront this issue? Because we're bringing kind of old tools, very antiquated tools, to a new party. So what I want you to start to think about, especially if you're a principal, if you're a teacher over this summer, is you need to re-skill yourself. This is another thing that I've noticed a lot. A lot of teachers, when they are feeling overwhelmed, they will advocate for less PD. Now, I'm a little biased because my job is PD, but I will say that advocating for less PD is not necessarily going to help you feel less tired. Like less time in PD is not necessarily going to make you feel less tired. Less time in bad PD is going to be less exhausting because the bad PD is bad. But less time in PD, if it's done well, means that you're not getting the tools and skills you need. So by no means am I saying that you need to go to the district, sit and get. That's just like nonsense that you already know. I'm saying you really do have to invest and figure out how you're going to upskill yourself to meet the current needs of our students. And the best way to do that might not be professional development, but it needs to look like PD, coaching, support, book studies, etc. And as a leader, it's your job to set the tone in the school building, and you have to know how to do that. Because again, quiet as it's kept, the reality is a lot of the principals that I work with, they don't know how to do what they're asking teachers to do either. They don't know how to do what they're asking teachers to do either. So, and that's not an indictment on anybody. That's saying, okay, so we all need to figure this out. So we either got to bring somebody in with the skills or we have to learn the skills themselves. So if you're a principal and you are seeing all of these huge academic gaps and you're seeing, like, my teachers don't know how to differentiate, my teachers don't know how to scaffold, my teachers aren't, the lessons aren't interesting, they're not engaging, and that's why we have all these behavior issues, because our kids aren't engaged, because the best behavior management will always be what? That's right, a well-planned lesson. If you're seeing that, then you need to be able to also do that, because you need to model that. You need to lead that. And the summer is a great time. I don't want you to spend your whole summer doing administrative tasks, crossing T's, dotting I's. You might need to spend the summer figuring out how to upskill yourself as a leader, and upskill yourself to be able to really meet the needs of the teachers and be able to show what it should look like. We have moved so far past knowing what good instructional practices look like, because we're focusing on things like the curriculum or the students or the families. And to be clear, sometimes those things are a barrier. They absolutely are. But my advice to leaders, if you want to stop putting out fires, if you want to actually be able to lead, you have to be the instructional leader of the building. You have to. And to be the instructional leader of the building, you have to know what good instruction looks like. You have to know the protocols and the practices. You have to be able to show your teachers. And if you can't, you need someone in there who can. So depending on what model your school has, maybe your school has a model where you have an AP that's focused on instruction, or maybe you have a coach, or maybe your district has a coach. That person needs to be very much clocked in and helping and supporting and upskilling teachers for meeting the need. Because it almost, the curriculum does matter, but a curriculum is not going to make the biggest difference, because I've seen amazing teachers work a completely trash curriculum. Get amazing results out of a curriculum that is absolutely terrible. And then I've seen teachers that really, really need help, but have a fire curriculum, but the results still aren't resulting, because it's not just about the curriculum. So as a leader, the first thing I want you to think about is, instructionally, do you have the capacity yourself to be the instructional leader? Do you feel like you could give good coaching, support, and advice for your teachers to really rebuild students' learning power? And if you can't, then you need to think about that this summer. Like I mentioned in my last video, I'm reading Rebuilding Student Learning Power by Zaretta Hammond this summer. I'm reading it with some folks here, and that has been a godsend. It's been so great, because we're talking about not just like learning and compliant and kids like filling in the blanks and checking out the boxes, but rather a classroom where kids are really independent learners. So if you as a principal, if you feel like you could go in there tomorrow and you could help some kids become independent learners, you're probably in a good place. But if you sit back as a leader and you think, can you go into every single classroom? Can you go into every single classroom and build those independent learners? And the answer is no. Your summer needs to be spent upskilling yourself, or again, finding someone who can, building those systems in. I think we're all kind of like dancing around the problem of instruction because nobody wants to say the thing, which is that like a lot of this is unknown. A lot of this is we don't know. Even the best folks, right? Even someone like myself, the instructional practices and strategies that I first started using, even some of the ones that are rooted in joy, I would actually update those now because I've learned more about like the student brain, and the student brain capacity has changed. So things that I did in year 1 or things that I even did in year 5 might not really work that well right now because it's a totally different kettle of fish. We're in a totally different ball game. So what I want you to think about as a leader, the first step is thinking, are you an instructional leader? Do you have that capacity? And this is why I'm not super passionate about, principals that are just kind of like put in there because they can run the building. Like, yes, you need to run the building, but somebody also needs to be the instructional visionary. You need to know what good teaching looks like. You need to know how to help your teachers who aren't there get there. You need to know how to break down the steps. You need to have in your mind, like, okay, at this school, in this context, this is what a highly qualified, well-trained, effective teacher looks like. And you need to say, here's who I have in the building. Here's where they go on that scale. And I know how to get every single one of them to that highly effective place. On a slight tangent, and some of y'all you're not going to like this conversation, but I was going back and forth on another app with somebody about all of the highly effectives that teachers get, like in the scoring. And my thing is, if all of the teachers in your building are getting like 10 out of 10, 5 out of 5 or whatever it is, then you shouldn't be having the data should be reflecting that. The data should be showing that your teachers are highly effective. It's not always a one-to-one correlation. There's other factors that play for sure, but it should be looking pretty good. It should be pretty solid. It's not going to be perfect. I don't think anybody's is going to be perfect because there's too many mitigating factors. But you need to have you need to have your students making growth. Okay, I'll say growth because maybe not necessarily they're firmly there because they could have come up with learning gaps. But if you're your kids should have growth. So all that to say, my point is that if you're a principal and you're the instructional leader of the building, you need to know how to get teachers from wherever they are to the point where they can grow students a couple of years. At this point, we need at least 2 years a year to catch up with how far back a lot of our kids are. So thinking about what that looks like this summer for you, thinking about what learning do you need to do, who do you need to bring in, how do you actually make it possible so that your teachers are able to get the support that they need to lead instructionally rich environments. That's part of the job as well. And like I mentioned, it's one of those things where leaders we distract ourselves with all these other things. And last week we talked a lot about how firefighting can distract you from doing your job. When you are just putting out fires, you aren't doing the work of leading. And the work of leading is messy and it's more challenging and you have to roll up your sleeves and it's not as clear and it can be very frustrating for folks. And that's the same thing with instruction. Sometimes we focus so much on the behavior that we forget this is a school. Everybody needs to be learning. So you have to be able to have that strong instructional foundation. And don't distract yourself with just putting out all of these behavior fires and ignore the instructional, health of your building. And so, to really surmise, the point is that you need to figure out, are you able to be the instructional leader in the building? Are you able to be that person where you can jump in and model? They're like, well, I thought I did do a good job. Can you come in and show what a good job looks like instructionally? A lot of us can do the behavior, but can you show what it means to take a standard, differentiate it, scaffold it, support it, so that the lion's share, 70 to 75 needs to answer. And if you feel like you can't answer that question, then you need to bring in someone who can. You need to make sure that your teachers are getting that support. So what I love about this conference that I'm at right now is that the teachers are learning. They're being upskilled. If they want to do something and they don't know how to do it, they're being upskilled. Someone's coming in and saying hey, this is how you implement this practice. This is what it looks like. That's what leaders have to do this summer. You need to be, you might not be the best teacher in the building, because I'm a big fan of keeping the best teacher in the building in the classroom, but you do need to be one of the strong teachers in the building, and you do need to know what you're doing and be solid. So I want you to just think about that, as the instructional leader, what that really looks like for you. And remember that this summer is your opportunity to start to do some of that heavy lifting. And if you can't do it, you got to find someone who can. Because I know some of us are in positions where, maybe you were at high school and now you're a leader at a K-5. So then who is some of it transfers, but some of it doesn't. So then who is helping the K-5 teachers instructionally move forward and progress? You got to figure that out. So what I would recommend to you, if you have not, there's a couple of books that I would recommend. I would recommend Street Data. I would recommend, obviously, Zaretta Hammond's new book. I would recommend Zaretta Hammond's first book. I really like Building Thinking Classrooms in Mathematics. It's about mathematics, and there's some limitations there. But don't sleep on the instructional side and being the instructional leader. Some of the routines and strategies that I have my leaders build out over the summer when we work together is we work on an instructional strategic plan specifically. Like we have a strategic plan for the overall school, but then we have another strategic plan for instruction, and we talk about like, what are we looking for? What are our benchmarks? Because we're not just going to live and die by standardized test season at the end of the year. There's so much more work that we can do before that. So we plan out in our instructional strategic plan, and we look at like if there's things in our plan, such as if our instructional plan focuses on, we're going to make sure that each teacher is using like these XYZ engagement strategies. I need to make sure that my leader knows how to do those strategies, knows how to coach those strategies, knows how to like promote those strategies, right? You need to know what you're talking about with instruction. So you need to have a super clear, strong, articulated instructional vision for like what you want it to look like, your strategic plan that could be done with your staff together as well. And then lead from that and make sure you have the skills to do that. Okay. We have to be honest with ourselves. Some of our teachers they just don't have the skills to deal with the current need that our students have. And that's nothing against the teachers, but that's the reality. That's the reality of the modern classroom, of the 8 to 10 second attention span. Unless they were getting their credential in the last like 1 or 2 years, they wouldn't have even had that data. And if they were getting their credential in the last 1 or 2 years, they don't have the expertise in the field yet to even really be able to do something with that. So a lot of our teachers are in need of some upskilling. I would look at your professional development calendar and make it really clear. Don't start throwing money at another curriculum. Don't start throwing money at another ed tech device. Don't assume that the Chromebook is going to fix it. The Chromebook is not going to save you. Matter of fact, in California, we're moving away from the Chromebooks. Like there's going to be screen time limits for folks. So all that to say, y'all, the main takeaways from this are if you are an administrator, you also need to be the instructional leader of the classroom. You'll spend less of your time putting out fires if you create a coherent instructional vision, if you know what good teaching looks like and what you need to see, and you know how to cultivate that in your students and your teachers, and they know how to cultivate it in their students. And if you don't know, you need to find out. You've got to know what you're talking about so that way you can do the model lessons. I love to see a principal doing a model lesson. That's what I want to see. You get in there and you show and the teachers that you know what you're doing. And it's also just great for you too to stay fresh. I always recommend people staying fresh, even if you're a leader. Like stay in the game, stay practicing, stay in that classroom so you never lose touch with the reality of the day-to-day. So those are the first 2 steps, is like figuring out your vision, upskilling yourself if you need to, right? And then I would do an instructional strategic plan. I would have a whole plan written out so that you know what to look for and what this year coming up will look like. But recognizing that, there is just a skill gap with instruction. It's unprecedented. And the model that we had, I posted about this not too while ago. I'm not a big fan of model coach fade anymore. And I know that is what we've been using for forever, but I've been tweaking the old model coach fade, the I do, we do, you do model. I've been tweaking that a lot because I'm just not seeing that it's working well for the student attention span. So I've been playing with that. I've been playing a lot with the instructional block and making sure that the moves that I want to see that I know will keep kids engaged and moving forward, that those are present. So it's a time where you've got to think about that. Don't forget to put that on your long list of things to do. And again, if you're one of those folks where you're like, Deanna, I don't have it. School culture was my thing. Instruction wasn't my thing. Or maybe you're in a school that isn't the grade level that you taught, or maybe you never taught. I know there's some principal, crazy as it is, I know there's some principals out there who have never really taught like that. So you need to find someone who can help you. You need to find some support and know how to do that. So I have lots of resources about how to use this time, how to help you stop putting out fires and start leading and being the leader that you want to be. Make sure you check out my page. I mentioned the Zaretta Hammond's book. We're reading that together on my stories, so make sure that you check out the stories and see like what's good with the book every few days. I'm coming to you from beautiful Vermont right now and doing some professional development out here for like 400 amazing teachers. And let me tell you, when like teachers are given agency and choice and it's done well, teachers actually love the support of instructional, of PD around instructional development. So it can be done really, really well in a way that teachers actually appreciate. So I want to give you a little bit of homework. I want you to think about before you come to the next live, think about like, what does a good teacher in your mind do? Like, what are the instructional moves that show that a teacher is a really good teacher? And you might already have a protocol that your district uses, like maybe you use Danielson or whatever different rubric. I use one that was actually given to me by the university that I worked at. So it doesn't matter where you get it from, but you want to have something to go off of so that you know, like, okay, this is what I'm looking for. And so that you yourself can be competent in it first so that you can lead it. All right. I hope that makes a lot of sense. Let me know if you're watching the replay. Next week, we'll be back with another episode talking all about how to stop fighting fires and to start leading. This is going to be your summer. This is going to be your summer where you figure out how to be the best school leader that you can be and hit the ground running in August, September, whatever. And if you're a teacher watching this, don't be shy. Send it to your administrator. Because administrators don't get enough love. They don't get enough help and support. So make sure you see all the resources. I have some stuff in my bio and stuff like that for you because I want to support this work. And I know it can be isolating, but I've got lots of resources, a checklist, protocols, and a workbook, like an entire workbook just for you to use to figure out all of this stuff. All right, y'all. Well, thank you so much. And remember your homework, right? Start to think about what it means to be a good teacher in that context. And if you are struggling with something in particular, shoot me a DM. Say, Deanna, we're having a really hard time with literacy. Like, I need some literacy moves. And I can point you in the direction of a book that'll give you some literacy moves that could help. So that is all we have for us today. I'll see you all next week. And let's make this our most joyful year yet.